There is a mask in the Star Wars galaxy that has been photographed, merchandised, and feared for over a decade, and almost no one who owns it knows the name of the man who wore it. He commanded the Inquisitorius. He answered only to Darth Vader and the Emperor. He hunted the last Jedi across the galaxy with a spinning double-bladed lightsaber, and he was good at his job, disturbingly good. But before any of that, he had a different mask, a different lightsaber, and a different oath. He was a Jedi. This is the story of how a man sworn to guard the Jedi Temple ended up helping to burn it down. Long before he was the Grand Inquisitor, he was a Pawan from Utapau, born more than 15 years before the invasion of Naboo. At some point in his life, he was found to be Force-sensitive, brought into the Jedi Order, and trained until he became a Jedi Knight. He was given one of the most thankless postings in the entire Order, the Jedi Temple Guard. The Temple Guard were sentinels who protected the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. To take the role, a Jedi Knight gave up their name in all but record, hid their face behind a featureless mask, and gave up any hope of personal recognition. They carried lightsaber pikes, double-bladed weapons built for the narrow halls they patrolled, and they were trained to feel nothing in particular about anyone. No friendships, no grudges, just duty. It was meant to be a position of honor. In practice, it was anonymity for life. And it left this particular Jedi with a problem he never resolved. He wanted to learn. He wanted access to the Jedi archives, the deepest archives, the restricted texts, the knowledge reserved for masters and the council. But a low-ranking temple guard had no claim to any of that. The Order's chief archivist, Jocasta Nu, denied him again and again. It is a small thing. It is the kind of small thing that, left alone for years, becomes something else entirely. During the Clone Wars, the Jedi Temple was bombed. The act was blamed on Ahsoka Tano, a Padawan who fled into the underworld of Coruscant rather than face an order that had already decided she was guilty. This temple guard was one of the men sent to bring her in. When the real culprit, Ahsoka's friend, Barriss Offee, was finally caught and brought before the Senate, this same guard escorted her into that final hearing. He stood there and watched Barriss confess, and he heard her say in front of the Chancellor in the galaxy that the Jedi Order had lost its way, that it had become exactly the kind of institution it claimed to fight against. Ahsoka was cleared, but she didn't return to the Order. She walked away from it because the Council's failure to trust her had already told her everything she needed to know. The guard watched all of it happen, and according to Star Wars' own reference material, it left him conflicted. He didn't necessarily disagree with what Barriss had said. Combined with years of being shut out of the archives by Jocasta Nu, the experience cracked something in his faith that never repaired itself. This is worth sitting with for a moment because it is not a dramatic villain origin. No one tortured him, no one threatened his life. He was simply, quietly made to feel like he didn't matter by the same order that asked him to give up his name to serve it. When Order 66 was given, the Jedi Temple was the first and most important target. Darth Vader led the assault personally alongside the clone troopers under his command. The Jedi Temple guards were among the defenders. By most accounts, they fought and died, protecting the temple they had spent their lives guarding. This guard did not die with them. The exact details of what happened to him during the Purge are not shown on screen. What is on record, stated by Star Wars Rebels and the Clone Wars writer Henry Gilroy at a 2018 convention panel, is that this guard turned on the Jedi as early as Vader's assault on the temple, helping clear the way for the slaughter of his own brothers and sisters in the Order. This detail comes from the creative team rather than a filmed scene, so take it as strongly implied background rather than something you've watched happen. What we do know for certain is that he survived. Palpatine made sure of it. The Emperor recognized exactly what he was looking at. A Jedi Knight who already resented the Council, who already believed the Order had betrayed people he respected, and who had spent his whole career being told he wasn't important enough to be trusted with real knowledge. Palpatine offered him the opposite: full access to the Jedi archives, a title, a purpose. He became the Grand Inquisitor. This is the part of his story that should unsettle you more than any of his kills. The Grand Inquisitor wasn't dangerous because he was the most powerful Force user the Empire could find. He wasn't. Across his appearances, multiple Jedi, even partially trained Padawans, eventually beat him. He was dangerous because he knew exactly how Jedi thought. He could look at a fighting style and immediately identify which master had trained someone, correctly deducing, in one encounter, that Canon Jarrus had trained under Jedi Master Depa Billaba simply from his technique. He understood temple security, temple records, and Jedi psychology from the inside because he'd lived it, and he was willing to use that knowledge in ways the Jedi Order itself never would have. He used the actual remains of Jedi Master Luminara Unduli, broadcasting a false image suggesting she was still alive, as bait to lure other Jedi survivors out of hiding. A man who once stood guard duty to protect the dignity of the Jedi Order spent his second life desecrating it for sport. For all his menace, the Grand Inquisitor was, underneath it, a deeply afraid man, just not of the people he was sent to kill. He feared Darth Vader. When he finally lost, defeated by Canon Jarrus aboard an Imperial Star Destroyer above Mustafar, Canon had the chance to save him. The Inquisitor was left dangling above the ship's burning reactor, and rather than accept rescue and return to Vader, having failed yet again, he let go. His last words to the Jedi who beat him were that there were things far more frightening than death. He chose to die rather than face his master's punishment for failure. If that were the end of his story, it would already be a tragedy. It isn't the end. According to Marvel's Canon Darth Vader comic series, Vader refused to let his spirit move on. He tethered the Inquisitor's spirit to an abandoned Jedi outpost on the planet Tempest, using him as a living trap to catch any Jedi who might come looking for relics there. Years later, Luke Skywalker, searching for a lightsaber after losing his father's blade on Cloud City, found that outpost, and the Inquisitor's spirit attacked him. Luke defeated him. When Vader arrived afterward and the Inquisitor asked one more time whether he might finally be released from his torment, Vader refused. To the Sith Lord, the Inquisitor had never been anything more than a tool. And a tool doesn't get to ask for freedom. The man who once swore his life and his name to protect the Jedi Order ended his existence as Vader's leftover instrument, burning in an outpost no one visited, owned by the one man he'd feared more than dying. There's no single moment where this Jedi Knight chose evil. No lightning bolt, no seduction scene, no whispered promise of power. What actually happened to him was slower and, in some ways, more uncomfortable to look at. An order that overlooked him while he was loyal, followed by an empire that discarded him the moment he stopped being useful. He spent his first life as a man with no name, guarding people who barely noticed him. He spent his second life hunting the only family he'd ever had. And he ended both lives exactly the same way, as someone else's tool, never his own person. The mask survived. The title survived. The man underneath it never really got the chance to,